All right, our last presenter of the night is Jeremy Halderman with Changemakers 365. Jeremy is the Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy for Alight, which is formerly known as the American Refugee Committee. Prior to joining Alight, Jeremy worked for the Peace Corps and spent almost a decade working on Capitol Hill in a variety of different capacities. Jeremy holds an undergraduate degree in business administration from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and a JD from St. Louis University School of Law. He has a much longer bio, but for the sake of time, we cut it to that. And without further ado, Jeremy, have I unmuted you yet?
Yes.
Great. Are you ready for me to start?
Yes.
All right.
All right. Thank you. So as Yusuf mentioned, I work for Alight, and we're an international humanitarian assistance nonprofit. We build lives for and with the displaced in countries around the world. But if you look at the world right now around us, we're witnessing the largest movement of people on record, even prior to COVID. And we knew that something really radical, some radical change was necessary within the space in which we work and operate. We didn't know the answer, but we knew that bringing design to help solve the world's most pressing challenges would lead us in the right direction. And the humanitarian space, while well-meaning, is largely mired in a mindset of scarcity that delivers products and services at the bare minimum standards. So we asked ourselves, what if we actually decided to make our services truly human-worthy? And this led us to another question, which was, how do we hold ourselves accountable and feel responsible to listen and to act? Because it wasn't just enough to say we were going to do a better thing and we were going to deliver better products and services. We actually had to figure out a way to hold ourselves accountable, to truly listen, and to truly act. But this also led us to the next challenge. How on earth do we do this, right? We needed to find a way to bring as many people and as many ideas into this and onto our platform. And so we figured that the way to do it was going to be able to find a way to mobilize and unleash problem solvers into the world. But we were determined to do it in a way that was fully democratized, right? Everyone had to have equal access. And the example we looked at was actually Wikipedia, right? The only way Wikipedia was going to write the world's encyclopedia of information was to truly open it up. And we needed to find a way to do this as well. These questions in this process actually led us to create a new platform within our organization that we call Changemakers 365. At its core, 365 is a daily design sprint. Every day, 365 days a year, we source ideas for a challenge somewhere in the world, we co-create a solution, and we implement it. Once a day, every day, all year long. And each solution is executed for $500 a day or less. And the ideas come to us in a variety of ways, but there's three main ways they come through. One is through ideations that we lead in countries around the world. Other ones actually come to us from what we call light bulb moments in our teams in the field. And the third way are direct requests from people we serve, partners we work with, or anyone else who has a great idea. And this is helping us build a cadence within our organization. It's helping us redesign our products and services around our customers and at the service delivery points. But we never would have gotten there working on the $1 million idea, right? It's too big, and it had to be done in a doable way. And that's why we have landed on the $500 a day. One project every day, $500 a day. Any one of us on this call, any one of us in the Zoom, anyone around the world can do it. And that's what this platform fundamentally is about. It's about doing the doable. So Changemakers 365 has given our worldwide teams a tool to see the bright spots and the hope in the communities in which we serve, and to provide a little bit of a support that they need to make that idea grow. When we know, after doing this now, that when we get behind a Changemakers existing effort, they're gonna make $500 go further than we ever could, or than anyone else ever could. And that is creating a flywheel of change. And we're doing this because when we work on some of the world's toughest problems, and those really difficult problems can seem insurmountable. So what we want to do is actually while we do tackle the big problems, we also want to do the doable. Right then, right there, that's what Changemakers 365 is about. It's affecting real change for $500 a day or less every day. But practically, we do have to ask the question, how do we go from doable to done? And it's actually the answer is about staying as open as possible. What do we need to change? How do we need to get more creative? As much as we need to do, we want the person whose idea it is to come implement it. And that's actually where we're going to go now with a couple of change makers and ideas and examples. This one is from Thailand. This was a midwife in a refugee camp, and she was struggling with having clean and dry linens for all of her patients. And it's in the Nupo refugee camp, which is very rainy. She had the idea to build a drying shelter where wash linens could be protected from the rain and dry them, and so we helped her build the shelter. The next one is in Uganda. The challenge was that students weren't getting home from school in time to study because their school was too far from where they were actually living, so they were not getting home before sundown. We ideated with them, and they said, we need light. And so what we did is actually came up and found these headlights that you saw on those kids' heads for $500. And they're headlamps that they're actually able to wear and to utilize. And this third example is actually from Greece. It was a tough challenge because Syrian refugees and Greek nationals in the Polycastro district in Greece were actually at a point of tension. And so they actually came up with the idea to have a community festival, and which provided them the opportunity to get to know each other in a completely different way. So we've implemented now 800 plus days of change around the world, from Bangladesh to Somalia and Uganda to Pakistan. And it's giving us the opportunity to see our customers and how we can design our products and services in a much different way. And it's definitely a sprint. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a daily design sprint. And what that's actually now doing is giving everyone an incredible sense of momentum about how to take an idea to reality as quickly as possible. And acting fast is now what it's doing is building trust between our teams and the community. And that trust actually helps us to go on and to create actually bigger change. But we always want to learn. And one of the lessons that we've learned is that we have to find a way to get to yes. Even if it doesn't look like it fits within the 365, or even if it's going to be more than $500, we have to find a way to get to yes. Saying yes keeps the door open, and it actually helps us rethink the possibilities. And so we're now at the point of, after 800 plus days, what's next? So we're asking ourselves, how can we truly scale 365? We didn't set out to create something at scale. That was never the goal. What we did was co-created something that's actually now worthy of scale, and we're asking ourselves, what do we do next? So what we're really trying to think of doing is, okay, how do we get to 1,500,000 projects? And that's what we've set out to ask ourselves. How do we marry this listening idea, these daily design sprints, with the platform that can quickly act on all of these ideas that we've heard? And we are at the point that it's open source. It's open to anyone and everyone who wants to join us. And we have actually found that creating this open source platform for anyone who wants to jump on, from the customers at a service point in Somalia to somebody in Washington or somebody in Minneapolis where we're based, that's what it's all about. And we have the ability, you can reach us there's a couple of places that we put up there where you can reach us at Changemakers365 on Instagram or on Twitter. You can submit your ideas, you can engage with us to help us through one or more of our daily design sprints. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Gosh, that was so much. You got lots of applause coming through the chat, through the applause emojis. Thank you so much. Yeah, when we first heard about this and the idea of daily design sprints, I know that that's something that I personally get really excited about, and I wish I could just do that all the time. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the chat who wish that they could be that impactful every day. That being said, let's see if we have any questions from the community. Carl would like to know, how many people are in the sprints typically?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the answer is it does really depend. Sometimes the sprints will have just a couple of people in them who could be employees of our organization at the service points and service delivery. We always have the customers in them as well. So it usually just depends. Sometimes we'll have a couple of we actually are an NGO, but we have a pretty big design team. And so sometimes our designers will also be involved, but they're often involved in those. So it depends. It could be anywhere from 3 to 10 people.
Waiting for some more questions in the chat. We had some from our organizing group. We were curious. I know that you gave some examples that were all wonderful and strong, and I don't know by what metric they made it into the presentation versus others, but didn't know if you had a favorite project personally.
So we actually do, and it wasn't one of the ones that I listed. Actually, it actually came from in northern Uganda. It's the Bitty Bitty refugee camp, and it's actually the largest refugee camp one of the largest refugee camps in the world right now. And one of the ideas that actually came out of there was that we actually run there were people going through a food line, and somebody was actually putting. It's one of the residents of the refugee camp was putting food in his gum boot, which is right, just like a rubber boot. And our staff were looking around and actually could not believe why he was doing that. And we asked him, and he's like, because nobody would give me a plate. So there was all of this massive food distribution operation going, and nobody thought to actually give plates, right?
Wow.
And that just came from an observation from one of our staff in engaging directly with the customer. And the other thing is, no one else there was even asking the guy the question. Like, people were just like, here's your food, put it in your gum boot, move on. This was happening day after day. So finally, one of our staff stopped and said, why on earth are you doing this, right? Because we had no idea. No one else bothered to ask the question either. And so then that turned into a 365 project where we went and we, asked them what type of plates he wanted and what they wanted, and we bought them for the people.
Okay, and then we have two more questions, and I think we'll end because I know we've already gone over a little, but I just want to make sure that people have the chance to ask you questions. We were wondering, how easy was it to sell Changemakers 365 internally?
It's a very good question, and the answer is actually at the beginning it was pretty difficult, right? Because so many organizations like ours work on these $1 million+ grants, right, from the UN and the State Department and USAID. And I think people fundamentally didn't understand why, because people were putting so much time and effort into doing the right thing, and change is hard, right? I mean, but so many of those huge ideas and those huge projects that we were working on, they weren't centered in human-centered design, which is core to our work. And so it was really difficult to actually move people within the organization. But then once they saw it, right, then it did start to pick up. But the initial sell was tough.
No, great. And last question was, I guess you referenced an intention to be more accountable to your users, and they're wondering how that's measured and how are you doing so far?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we actually, one of the ways that we do it, and which is right, there's always monitoring and evaluation in any sort of organization, any large grant organization like we have, but we actually didn't feel like we were accountable enough to our end users. So we actually have created a new system called Kucha, which is Swahili for come come. It was also born of a human-centered design process, and we describe it as is almost like an Uber or Yelp rating app for refugees, where they rate all of our products and services. Sometimes just using the self swipe at the service point, and other times it's analog and person to person. So we actually went out and we didn't see anything else that we thought was actually going to really hold us accountable. And so that's how we did it. We went out and created a new basically Uber rating app for ourselves.
Great. Thank you so much.